why is this so important? Like, why is the health of your romantic relationship such a core part of your overall well-being? Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Do you realize just how important the health of your romantic relationship is to your growth, your healing, and overall how you feel on a daily basis? This podcast is all about helping you heal your relationship with food, with your body, and with yourself. And I know that in order to do that, we can't just look at food or at your weight through a one-dimensional lens of it's just about food and it's just about your body. Because there's so many things that impact your decisions, how you think, how you feel on a daily basis. And so when I'm working with my clients inside of Food Freedom Academy, we take a very holistic lens. And I know that the word holistic, especially with people using holistic health in kind of a slimy way, can get a bad rep. But when I think of holistic, I think of what are all of the factors that impact you on a daily basis? And we can't ignore your romantic relationship, whether you're married or you're divorced or you're in a relationship or you're trying to date. This will impact your emotions, your energy, your thoughts, your self-worth every single day because you spend so much time with your partner. And if you're in a relationship where you don't feel like you can be open, you can communicate, you can tell them how you feel, and you can feel safe doing that, then it can slow down your healing and your growth because, first of all, you might not even feel like you can talk about how you feel around food and around your body image. And so it can feel like you're doing this alone. And maybe you don't even give your partner the chance to support you because you don't feel like they'll understand or you feel a lot of shame. And I hear this all the time in my clients who feel like I couldn't really talk to my partner about it, mostly because I didn't give them a chance to even have a say and even support me. I just feel so much shame. And so obviously that piece of it is going to slow down your healing and slow down your growth if you feel like you're doing it alone. And this is why I always recommend that you get in a room with people who are doing the same thing as you, who are growing, who are healing, who are working on themselves, who are stepping out of their comfort zone, who are facing their fears. Because when you see that others are doing it, others understand, others are getting wins, then that's going to fuel your momentum to do the same. But also on the flip side of it is if you feel like you're constantly feeling anger and frustration and resentment when it comes to your relationship and your partner, that's going to impact your energy. It will throw you into dysregulation. So you're going to be in survival mode. You're constantly going to feel triggered and in fight or flight. And you and I both know at this point, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while now, that growth and creation and moving towards healing does not happen when you're in survival mode. Because when you're in survival mode, it says it in the name, you're just trying to survive. And so it's hard, it's almost impossible to tap into higher level thinking and be like, I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and I'm going to regulate when you're constantly being triggered in your relationship. And so we just can't ignore the importance of having a healthy relationship. So we're going to talk about it today. And I actually have a phenomenal expert joining us, Libby Finlayson. She is a master mindset and relationship coach who speaks on the messy, the emotional, the human stuff that quietly wrecks our relationships. And she really empowers people to create thriving relationships, even when you think it's impossible, because I know that it can be really easy to fall into the pattern of thinking that this is how it's always been, or it's been like this for years. And so I don't think that we can change. And we talk about a really interesting term, which is what is a silent divorce. And we're going to give you practical mindset shifts and things that you can start doing right away that doesn't even need to involve your partner. Things that you can do within yourself to improve your relationship, to improve the communication, reduce the fights and the arguments, and really navigate conflict in a better way. So such a good conversation, you guys. So let's just get into our conversation with Libby. All right, Libby. So thank you so much for being here. There is so much to talk about when it comes to the importance of having healthy relationships, intimacy, connection, the ability to be vulnerable when it comes to healing. And in this podcast, we talk about healing your relationship with food, healing your body image. And I see this time and time again that the women I work with will say, my husband doesn't know the full extent to how much I'm really struggling. And they feel like they're doing this on their own and they don't really know how to communicate with their partner. And so before we even begin, can you talk about why is this so important? Like, why is the health of your romantic relationship such a core part of your overall well-being?
Yeah, really good question, Sabrina. Relationships, the health of your relationship has so much to do with your overall health. If you are suffering in your overall health in any way, it can really impact the way you behave and the way you interact because of the way you feel about yourself. And that can have a real impact on your relationship. And vice versa. And I think this is what's really important is if you're in a relationship that's really toxic, even if it didn't start out that way, but it's become really toxic and your self-worth is really degraded, that can lead to a lot of health problems as well. So, every cell in our body is taking in everything that we think, we say, what we put in our body. So we become what we think and what we eat and what we do. So, if you've got a really unhealthy relationship, your health will suffer. I mean, it's quite backed. If you look at all the research, of people that are suffering, if you actually ask them about their relationships, quite often they're not good. There obviously are people that suffer health problems that do have really good relationships, but then that health problem can impact the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very broad topic. But if some of your clients are really suffering in some ways with their health, and as you said, they don't always talk about everything with their husband, their partner. There is things that their partner doesn't know, and they don't know how to help them. And on the flip side, the person that's suffering the health problem, they don't feel themselves, so they don't always behave as themselves. Mm-hmm. And so the dynamic of the relationship can change according to what's going on.
I definitely saw the importance of having a healthy relationship when Luke and I, my boyfriend and I, started dating, and he had come from a past of very, very unhealthy relationships. And he was carrying a lot of baggage, not just from those relationships, but from his childhood, as we all do. And me being a coach, I think helps because I will never take things surface level. And if I notice that there is suffering, or if I notice like, oh, this is a trigger that keeps being repeated for you, I want to talk about it. And I want you to feel safe to talk about it with me. And the amount of growth that I have seen in him in the past 3 years because of this feeling of safety, of I can talk about these things that are really, really shameful or that I've hidden or not even known were there. I find it can create so much change. And the women who listen to this podcast, the change that they're trying to make with themselves when it comes to healing their relationship with food and healing years or decades long of unhealthy mindsets and emotions and behaviors with food, it does require a sense of vulnerability and feeling like my partner's on board, right? Like your partner might not be a coach, but your partner, or you can tell me if you agree, but is such an important part of your healing process.
Yeah, definitely. Knowing that your partner is there to support you through the healing is really important. The problem that we face is that people don't know how to help. You know, you and I have had training in coaching. We've had experience. We understand how to get through to people on a deeper level and help them to feel safe. Everyday people that haven't had that kind of training don't know how to do that. We all learn as we go. I mean, I got divorced. That's what got me into coaching pretty much. I had to change my whole life. You know, I had to change my relationship with myself because of what happened to me during my divorce. You know, I was a farmer. I married a farmer. We had a farm. You know, that was my life. That's what I loved. And when I got divorced, it was a shock divorce for me. And my self-worth went down the gurgler. I was like, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he love me anymore? Like, and I really didn't feel like I was good enough, you know, and I went through the whole grieving process and I had to leave the farm and I had to change my whole life. So for me, that journey led me to helping other people and seeing that it didn't matter what my partner thought of me and why he left. It didn't make me less of a person.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to healing, you know, if your partner doesn't know how to support you, and I even catch myself doing it with my kids and things, it's like, well, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. So the partner thinks they're helping by going, well, you need to eat more, or you need to change your diet, or you need to do more exercise, or you need to do whatever it might be that they think they're helping you. But people don't like being told what to do they?
Yep.
So, yeah, so people don't like, some people come to you and go, tell me what to do. But generally people want to be able to make their own decision. So from a relationship point of view, letting the person who's suffering know that you're there to listen and you're not going to judge them for what they're going through. And if you know that they need support in eating, say if they have an eating disorder and they really need to eat to be able to survive, instead of trying to force them to eat, even though you know that's kind of what has to happen at some point, it might be more about, as your partner, just listening to them and supporting them through what they're going through and leaving that tough stuff to the professionals.
Yeah.
Because as the partner, the person who's going through the illness needs to know that the partner will support them no matter what.
Yeah.
And love them no matter what. And be there for them no matter what. And sometimes that does mean tough love. Sometimes that does mean the partner saying, hey, you got to do something about this. We have to do it now. It's getting dangerous. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do you see as like, I think that the health of your relationship is a spectrum. So you've got, you know, the really communicative, open, safe relationships. And then obviously on the other side is the toxic relationships, what like we see as we know this is toxic. But would you say that most of the people that you see are kind of in the middle where it's not toxic, it's not inherently unhealthy, but it's also like this is not a healthy relationship? Like, what do you see as common patterns of like people being like, oh, our relationship is good enough, but there's certain things missing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So generally, most people that come to me are either divorced or they're on the brink of separation. And so they're trying to change their life. They're trying to change the relationship. They're trying to make it better because they don't want to be divorced. Okay. And then I also get the people that come to me who actually want to improve their health. And within that, I actually became a relationship coach through being a health coach because I'd been through a divorce and everything. When I'm coaching someone through their health and helping them get healthier, whichever way, for whatever reason they want to be healthier, I would ask them, how's your relationship? And they go, yeah, pretty good. And after a few weeks of coaching, it'd be like, actually, it's not that good. And this is the pattern that I found. And a lot of it came down to self-worth. So to answer the question that you originally asked me, because I'm going on a different tangent, is that generally what I see is if they're not already divorced, they're in the middle. And what was once a beautiful relationship is turning toxic. And it's not because either person is a bad person. It's because they start bringing out the worst in each other. Unresolved traumas, as you said, like, with your boyfriend, childhood traumas, things like that, that cause you to have triggers to certain behaviors. And then as you grow into these certain behaviors, you actually get into a negative loop.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see in most of these relationships that are failing is they're forgetting to do the things that actually make them feel for each other. And I call this slow disconnection a silent divorce. And I don't know whether you've seen on my Instagram or anything like that, but at the moment, silent divorce is the main thing I sort of talk about because people don't realize they're in it. And what I'm doing is waking them up to the fact that you might be getting on well, you might be roommates, you might be housemates, you've got kids, you've got family, you've got health issues or whatever's going on. But are you slowly drifting apart? And then in 5 years' time, you're getting a divorce and you go, wow, how did that happen? We just grew apart. We stopped loving each other. So when they look back on it, they weren't doing what they needed to do to stay together. And the toxicity starts to set in with the negative patterns.
And it must be so subtle.
Yeah, so subtle, little along the way.
Yeah.
And we are wired for negativity because negativity keeps us safe, right? So as much as we all want to be really positive people, and we can be positive, and sometimes we actually have to learn how to be positive because we have to learn to find the positive in all those negatives, right?
Mm-hmm. I definitely had to learn to be positive.
Yeah, because it's so easy to fall into the negative because when we're negative, it's like, oh, there's a negative over there. I can stay away from it. Or there's a negative. And then we get triggered by something and then we react. That reaction can be negative to our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so then every time, as an example, your husband doesn't put the dish in the dishwasher properly.
I feel called out.
You feel called out. You do. You go, oh, that annoys me. And so then all these little things build up and it causes resentment.
And I think you can probably relate to this as business owners, as people who really take our personal growth seriously. I am always so mindful of my energy of okay, what emotions did I feel today? Did I feel resentful? Did I feel desperate? And the health of your relationship, if you're feeling daily resentment and frustration and anger, that's going to impact your energy. That's going to impact the way that you see the world because now your thoughts are going to be more negative. And then it's that negative thought spiral of one thing leads to your entire day feeling like crap.
Yeah. And we have a choice. This is one of the things I teach is when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you think of? And I ask this, especially with couples, I say, when you both wake up in the morning, what do you think of and what do you think of? Is it negative or positive thought? And so what I do is try and train them into more positive thoughts and positive thoughts about each other. I start bringing curiosity back. Instead of looking at your husband or your wife and going, oh, yeah, they're whatever, look at them and say, how well do I know that person? What is it about that person that I love? So instead of going, oh, God, he's left his dirty socks on the floor again, how about, yes, okay, he has left his dirty socks on the floor, but who cares? What about him do you not know yet? Look at them with curiosity and think about having a positive day.
Mm-hmm.
So you wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to have a positive day. And it's such a simple thing. And if I wake up and I feel negative, that's what I do. And it changes my whole world.
Yeah.
I'm feeling negative, and when I pick it up, I go, oh, I'm feeling a bit negative this morning. I don't feel great. What kind of day do I want to have? I ask myself that question, and I always come up with the same answer. I'm going to have a bloody great day.
Yeah. Luke and I have a mug that says today is going to be a great day. And that's how every time we part ways in the morning, that's what we say to each other.
Yeah. And does it make a difference to your day?
Mm-hmm. It
Yeah,
really does.
it
And
really does.
I find that the more you focus on what your partner does negatively, the more it repeats itself. Like, I really noticed that when it comes to the dishes in the sink, that was a big one for me of like, you're always leaving the dishes in the sink. It takes 2 seconds to put away. And I remember at a certain point, I was just like, pay attention to the things he does do and pay attention to the times he does put his dishes away. And I know it can be hard to not want to feel like you are mothering or having to always like celebrate, like, congratulations, like you put the dishes away. But it's all those little moments of like, if, expressing, hey, thank you so much for putting the dishes away. Like, I really appreciate that, because I know that at least as a partner, if there's something that I'm really working on improving, I don't think that your partner wants to be messy and wants to be frustrating. So being able to just be like, hey, I noticed that you did this. I really appreciate it. They're just more likely to do it again in the future.
Yeah, that's so true. And I find that as women, especially once we've had children, we start mothering our husbands more because we're mothering our children, and then we're telling our children what to do. Get in the bath. We're teaching them how to put their dish in the dishwasher. We're teaching them how to eat with a knife and fork. We're doing all these things. We're constantly telling them what to do. And then we turn around to a husband and we tell them what to do. And then the more we do that, the more demasculated they become, or emasculated is probably the right word. And what happens is they kind of wait for you to organize their life, because when they try and organize it, we get shitty at them. And it's just must be an inbuilt female thing that once we have children, we're trying to control our world, and it's all about control. And it's not about trying to control your husband, but it's about trying to control the whole family and keep everything in check so that you can cope. And one of the biggest issues that women face from men is this mothering that we do to them. And then we sit there and whinge about them and bring out all the negatives. So we're constantly bringing out the negatives, like, oh my God, he never does this, he never does that. He's always doing this, or he's off with the boys at the pub. He's blah, 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 blah. Instead of going, wow, he does this, he does this, he does this. And then we tell them off and we mother them. And what I see is men just waiting to be told what to do because it keeps the peace.
Mm.
Instead of leading and going, hey, I'm the provider or I'm the leader of this family and I'm going to lead by example, they get mothered. Now, not all men. There's a lot of very dominant men out there as well that are very dominating to women as well and become very toxic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot of mothering going on. And when you stop mothering and let them make more decisions, trust the process that they can actually, you know, book the holiday, do this, do that, or whatever it might be, you will find that they will step up naturally and they will start doing more around the house naturally. When you help them to feel worthwhile again, because a lot of men lose their worth in a family when the kids come along. And when you start showing them that they are really worthy and you love them for that and you respect their decisions and tell them how good they are, because we forget to do that with our men. We don't compliment them like we did when we first met them. And they don't compliment us the same either. So it's kind of that this is where the silent divorce comes in. You know, you start just going like this in separate ways, doing separate things, and then complaining that you don't do enough together. But when you're together, you talk about the kids and logistics and bills. And
Yeah.
do you see where I'm going with that? How
It
easy
makes
it can happen?
it makes so much sense why, I am one, I like to take charge. I hyper independence. And when I first started dating Luke, it was very much like, I'm going to make the decision, because if I make the decision, it's going to be done right. And it makes sense why over time the partner is just going to start to learn, when I take the charge, when I make decisions, I don't do it right. And so I'm just going to wait for them to tell me what to do. And over time, there is a power dynamic that starts to get formed. And it really requires putting your ego aside and letting things, like, for me, it was very much like, okay, I'm going to let you make the reservation and let it be not the way that I would do it, or like plan this and let it be not the way that I want to do it. But it does come back to control of like, it needs to be done my way. And that starts to erode the relationship.
Yeah. And I love that, because remember you just said, if I do it my way, it'll be done right. Right to who? Who says it's right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a right and a wrong. Like, there is no right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. Okay, so you're like, we book this holiday, we'll stay at a hotel I like, and we'll eat where I want, and it'll all be done right. So is there such a thing as right and wrong? It's
In
really just a
in our
different sort of
minds
thing.
there is, but definitely not. And sometimes they do it
Yeah,
even better than what
they
you could have
do.
done.
And they surprise you with beautiful things or tours or whatever it might be, that you go, oh, wow, you thought about that. So
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to give and take. There's always give and take in every relationship. And I know it can be hard too when someone is suffering something, some sort of illness, because sometimes there's a lot more give towards that person because they need extra help. And that can be really tiring on the other partner.
Mm-hmm.
But that aside, you drift apart if you don't keep curious in each other and recognize each other's strengths and play towards the strengths. What happens is we start playing towards the negatives. They're not very good at that, so I'm going to bag them for it.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't they be better at this? Why can't my husband do that? Why? Oh, your husband does that. Why can't my husband do that?
Mm-hmm.
And they do the same with women. Why can't you wear sexy lingerie like the chick on the TV or whatever it might be, like instead of wandering around in your pajama pants? But if you make the effort every now and then and you show interest in them, they give it back tempo,
Yeah.
usually, most
Yeah.
of the time, and it comes down to getting rid of that control and letting both playing to each other's strengths is what you need to work on. Like, you're really good at doing that, so show me how to do it, or help me do it. I'll help you do it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really good at this. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Instead of taking over the whole picture.
Yeah. So let's say that our listeners are listening right now and they're in a relationship, and maybe they feel like this could be, our relationship could improve. I don't know where to start, because I feel like oftentimes you don't know exactly. It's like the awareness of what is wrong isn't there. You're just like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel connected. I feel really frustrated. I feel resentful. And so, like, what is the first step in really kind of uncovering the awareness of where have we gone wrong?
Yeah. The first step is recognizing that you have a problem. It's recognizing that there is a disconnect in the relationship. And the second step is understanding resentment and expectations. So expectations are a relationship killer. Yes, we all have expectations. We know life has expectations, but it's how high those expectations are. If you have a dream of what your dream relationship is going to look like, and then you get married and have kids, and is definitely not the dream. It never is. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. Things go pear-shaped, a fight that you never thought you would have had that you've had, someone saying something, things go wrong. Things happen. Shit happens. Life happens. So if you have an expectation up here, generally you're going to be disappointed. And the most important part of healing your relationship, whether it's with yourself, with your partner, with your body, whichever it is recognizing where the problem is. And quite often that is in resentment. We resent our bodies. We resent our partners. We resent our parents. We resent our children. It can go on and on. And resentment is the killer, because when you hold on to that, you're actually just holding on to a past thought and event, and you've made a story out of it. And you believe that story, and you've made that story. And you actually, because of the way our minds work, we make the story bigger and uglier than it
Yeah.
actually is. And then we believe it, and then we carry that story on in our lives. So quite often, if you get divorced, you'll carry those same stories into the next relationship. And eventually things start coming out in that relationship, and they're all the same pattern. So the biggest healing moment is, one, knowing you've got a problem. Two, understanding resentment. Three, we learn how to let resentment go. And that is what I teach mainly, is letting go of it.
I love what you mentioned about you make it mean something so much more. Because I remember when I would get so frustrated about these small things, you can notice when you're like, the event is this big and my reaction is this big. And anyone who's not seeing on camera, like very big. And I would notice, like, why is this so triggering for me for him to leave the dishes in the sink? And so I just started asking myself, like, what am I making this mean? And it was, he doesn't care about me. He can just rely on me to pick up after him. I'm doing everything. And so we create this whole story, but we don't even consciously become aware of the story unless we ask ourselves, like, what am I making it mean? And even just being able to have a conversation like, hey, this is the story that I'm telling myself. You know consciously that that's not true, that like leaving dishes in the sink isn't about not caring, but we make it mean so much. And so I would be curious about this. Do you find that a really difficult piece that people have is once they recognize the problem, they recognize the resentment, they recognize like the stories they're making it mean, having the conversation with their partners is something that people struggle with?
Oh, yo, yes. So this is where it gets hard because you recognize what's going on, and it's very hard not to still blame the other person. But you did that and that made me feel bad. You keep doing that, it makes me feel bad. It's your fault. So it's very easy to justify how you feel with the outside world around you. You know, it's like when you trip over a rock and you go, oh, bloody rock got in the way. Well, actually, no, you didn't see the rock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same in the relationship. Like, he made me feel bad. Well, actually, you get to choose how you feel. He did something. You reacted to it. It's your choice how you react. Yes, we are wired to react certain ways and things trigger us. So we might react. But then you ask yourself, okay, I reacted really badly to his behavior. Why did I do that? That's a me thing. It's got nothing to do with them. And when we recognize that and we can work on ourselves by saying, hang on, why am I behaving this? Where am I contributing to the downfall of our relationship? Because I think he's an asshole. But why do I think he's an asshole? Is he an asshole? Or am I making him out to be an asshole? And then I'm making a big story out of it and believing it. And so to answer the question, I suppose being able to communicate that can be really difficult because most of us aren't trained in how to have a conversation without judging each other and how to make it about resolution and peace instead of about who's going to win.
I had heard this analogy a couple of years ago, which was if you imagine like you and your partner having a conversation or an argument, and you imagine that there's like a table in between, most people come at it like one is on one side of the table, the other is on the other side of the table, and you're like fighting each other to make the other person see your point of view, see your point, agree with you. Whereas when you can look at it as like you're both on the same side of the table and it's you guys against the problem instead of you guys against each other, just that creates such a different energy in the conversation that you're going to have.
Yeah, and funny you say that because my partner and I had an argument the other night. And what happened is, well, it was just, my daughter who's 14 is can be hard work at the moment. She's 14. Yeah, okay. And they clash a bit. And they got upset with each other. And I was like, whoa, you guys, just chill out. So anyway, we all went our separate ways to cool down. So then when I went to have a conversation with him, sat next to him, and instead of looking at each other, we sat next to each other and we had the conversation. And for me, that kind of thing is really important because I don't go at him because I'm trained in it, I suppose, and because this is what I teach. I don't go at him going, you did everything wrong. I go at him going, what was the purpose for that? What's happening inside you for you to react like that? Are you at your limit? Like, where do we need to make changes? What do we need to do? Can you please not speak to her like that again because she's only 14? He was like, yeah, I just don't even know where that came from. Like, I'm so upset with myself for being rude to her as an adult to a teenager. And so he was upset about that. But instead of me yelling and screaming at him, I sat next to him, held his hand and said, how are we going to make this better? What can we do? You know, so it's the way you have conversations. And unfortunately, until you learn how to do that, until you can figure that out or get help to figure that out, it can be really hard to break the conversation pattern because you don't know how to fight fairly, because you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe to be vulnerable, especially men don't feel safe to be vulnerable. And if you don't feel safe to be vulnerable, your ego is going to take over and you're going to try and prove your point and win the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, learning to communicate without judging each other is very important.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is the importance of approaching it from a place of curiosity instead of from a place of, let me tell you what I think and what I'm experiencing. And instead, like, I am always, always trying to get in other people's heads, because understanding that there's a reason why everyone does something and they have their own perspective, they have their own lived experience, they have their own nervous system responses. And do you take into account when you work with your clients, the importance of like being able to regulate yourself in a conversation so that you are not in this fight or flight, you're not in this survival mode, because like that is going to trigger that protective response to be reactive, to be aggressive. Whereas like when you can regulate yourself, then you're going to influence your partner's regulation as well.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And, I have to practice it. Like the other night, I got upset too. So I was like, we all had to go and have time out to get ourselves back together. And men especially need time out. Like men are different. Women need to talk about things. So straight away, we're like, oh, we need to sort this out. Rah, 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 rah. But men, they need to go into their man cave. It might be for half an hour. It might be for a day. So get to know what your man needs before you to resolve it. Because some men, they need to internalize. They need to figure out where they went wrong as well as where they were right, in their eyes. So that when they come to resolving it, they haven't got a woman at them like this because she's still angry.
Mm-hmm.
You both need to be calm. So what I teach is how to regulate your emotions. And there's different ways to do it. So it depends on the person. I work with the person to see what works for them about regulating their emotions. But I've also got an online course that has a lot of that stuff in it. So it's not just the one-on-one. The online course also does a lot of emotional regulation and talks about how we can sort of emotionally regulate ourselves and understand that we don't have to win a fight. It's not about winning. And when people get that, it's almost like an aha moment. They go, it's about the problem. So we can actually discuss it together instead of blaming each other. And I think that is how they kind of go, I don't need to be defensive. All those patterns I had two brothers. So it was always like, get in
I
there.
had three brothers, so I get it.
Yeah, so get in there and win. And like the voices beat each other up and like you get in there as a girl and you like yell and scream at them or whatever and then try and hit them as well. And it's like, I've got to win the fight because I'm right as a kid, because that's what we learn from our parents and from, you learn from what you see and what you experience, and just human DNA is survival. So when we try and emotionally win, that's not survival, but we see it as survival because our DNA, our nervous system is wired to try and, if you're in the fight, then you've got to win it. Otherwise, you're running, you're fleeing, or you're trying to win it. So emotionally, we try and win it. So what I try and teach people is that if they can regulate their emotions and realize that they don't have to win it, it's not about winning. It's not about who's wrong or right. It's like, this is the problem. How do we resolve it together? And if we can't find a solution because our opinions are so strong and so different, where do we meet in the middle and then let go of it and be happy with our decision that we agree to disagree and not hold on to the resentment? And that's quite a powerful thing when they start learning that. When I'm teaching it to them and they get it and they click, so powerful. And I love it. I get really excited.
Yeah.
I was figuring it out. Like, and people go, oh my God, like I used to get angry about everything. And now I've realized I just don't need to. And my life is so much better. Like the feedback is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
People's nervous systems just calm down automatically. And it's so good.
Yeah. I remember my first few months of living with Luke. we moved in after 6 months dating, and the first few months was like learning how to work through issues together because there was a lot of butting head, and we didn't really know the right way to communicate with each other. And so there was like frustration and anger building up. And over time, you learn how to talk to each other. You learn how to talk about hard things, and it doesn't turn into this blowout, and it's so much healthier. But this kind of leads me to my last question, which is, it was really beautiful for me because Luke was on board. And there might be some people listening right now who are like, I want to do this work. I want to heal. I want to really pay attention to these communication styles, but my partner's not on board. My partner's not doing the work and he's not doing the healing. I'm sure that you've seen this before.
All the time. So quite often I even get inquiries of people saying, I don't know if I can work with you because my partner isn't ready. And I'm like, well, what is it you want? Do you want to fix your relationship with him? Do you want to heal yourself? Do you want, because if you can start changing your behavior, quite often they follow. And so quite often I will work with one person, and I only hear their side when I'm working with one person. I always keep that really in mind, that I'm only hearing one side of the story. So I concentrate a lot on saying, how did you contribute to that? How do you feel about that? Because they do a lot of bitching about their partner, when they're here trying to heal and get help and want to change their relationship, but their partner's on board. So I'm working with one person. I spend a lot of time saying, okay, stop. I don't need to hear it. I don't need to hear the bullshit story. What do you feel? How would you like to feel? You're saying that they're doing this behavior over here. Why are you letting that affect you? What if you changed this behavior and the way you react? Do you think they would change that behavior? And quite often I find that they start changing their behavior, and they also start doing things for their partner that they've stopped doing nice things for them, like thanking the husband or their wife, and think little nice things in between the things that they don't like. And I teach them to let go of the resentment, and then they start finding a change in their partner.
Mm-hmm.
So quite often, if the partner's not on board, that's okay, because you've got to do your own inner healing, because most of the yucky stuff that you have with your partner is about you, not about them or what they've done. They are it's a trigger, and you're in a loop where you keep noticing the trigger instead of noticing the good stuff. I'm not saying that people don't behave badly, because they do, and sometimes their partner might be behaving really badly and not in a nice way for anyone. But if you can change the way you react to it, and you can regulate your emotions and start finding what is good about them and concentrating on that, quite often they will start to feel more vulnerable and less defensive, because a lot of the really bad behavior that people have is defensiveness and resentment. So if you start letting go of your resentment, it can follow.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. Some people, it's too late. Some of the behaviors are too bad. I just had a client who their relationship really did improve for a while, and I was working with her alone. And then an incident happened, and then she was like, you know what? No, I'm done with this. Like, I can't do it. No, I'm out. And so she chose to leave. So I supported her, whatever her decision was. I never got to work with him.
That was gonna be my question, is like, there must be at some point where you've done the work, you're really working on yourself, and you just get to a point where you're like, it's not going to work. Like, we've just
There's definitely that. Especially because if you're growing, unless they start to change because you're changing, because quite often when you change your behavior, they change theirs automatically, because they don't feel so threatened either. Now, if that doesn't change and you're growing as a person, sometimes you grow past it and you think, you know what, now I actually know who I am. I've done this work. I've let go of resentment. I've done this, and I've actually left you behind. And now I'm going to go and start this amazing life because I love who I am again, when I was hating myself a year ago.
Yeah.
So I do get a bit of that as well. So look, some of them work. The ones that want it together, they nearly always work. But the ones doing it with one-on-one, it can work definitely. But sometimes it doesn't. And for good reason sometimes as well. You leave them behind. They're just too immature, because they've got all their childhood traumas and things that they haven't dealt with. And you're like, I don't want to live with that anymore. If you're not going to do something about it,
Yeah. And I think it's really important if that happens, if you feel like you've outgrown the relationship, not to see it as a failure or like kind of what you experience of this means something about my self-worth. If anything, it's the opposite of like you've done so much work on yourself. You've grown and healed so much that now you see that you deserve better. And that is not a failure. You are just stepping into what is actually more in alignment for you now.
Definitely. And that's what I went through. I thought I'd failed. I was like, what have I done wrong? I failed my marriage. I failed for my children. I failed everything because I'm not good enough for him. He's leaving me. I'm not good enough for him. That was what I thought. I was like, clearly I'm not pretty enough, this stuff, all those things that I'd never come to my mind before and really thought about. I started hating myself. I started going, what is wrong with me? And then as I went through my self-growth journey and realized that it actually didn't probably have much to do with me. I mean, yes, there was definitely things in the relationship where we went through a silent divorce because what was happening was I didn't even know because we were still getting on so well that we weren't really strongly, deeply emotionally connected anymore. And that's probably what he was missing from me that I didn't see because he was always Mr. Positive, Mr. This, Mr. That I was just like, oh, whatever, like, pretty cash. And so by the time he said, I'm done, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how can you be done? Like, we don't even have any problems. Like, what are the problems? Like, and then I realized now that the problems were small and insignificant, but they were enough for him to think because he was seeing all the outside world and blaming the outside world for the way he felt, which was me, his dad, the farm, everything. So he was like, well, I need to go change my life. So that started my growth journey. And my growth journey was, well, I need to do what's best for me and for my kids. I need to be healthy, fit, happy, so I can look after my kids. So I put my health first, and then I was a better mum for my kids. So the growth journey can go whichever direction it takes. But I say that the best and worst thing that ever happened to me was my divorce.
Yeah. So many times the breakdowns in our lives that we feel are our rock bottom end up propelling us into who we actually can become. And I think that that's a really beautiful way to end this is that working on yourself and making yourself a priority is not selfish. If you want to be the best partner, the best mom, the best colleague, the best sister, the best daughter, it starts with you. Like it cannot start with anyone else. And I know women, we feel like we're selfish if we're not putting other people's needs before ours, but it always has to start with you as it did with you and propelling yourself into where you are now. So,
yeah, it
so
does.
beautiful.
And being the best of everything you want to be is only the best version of you. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone to still feel like you're the best at this. I mean, I'm not the best mum, but I'm trying, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Like what is the best mum? Where is the benchmark? And this is where those expectations, especially for us when we put these expectations on us, we try and live up to an expectation, and then we think we're failing. We're not failing.
Yeah.
We're just doing the best we can, and we should be really proud of ourselves and really happy with ourselves for doing the best we can and loving ourselves and loving our bodies and loving our family and loving our spouse in the best way that we can. And if it doesn't work for whatever reasons, you've done your best. You can be proud of yourself.
Yeah. Oh, well, Libby, where can people connect with you and get a dose of your content and your wisdom if they want to learn more?
Yeah. Well, easily. They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on TikTok. Not that I'm very good at responding on TikTok. So it's a bit hard to work. As my daughter says, I'm a bit old TikTok. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's Libby Coach. And you can also go to my website, which is Libby Finlayson Coach. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Libby Finlayson, LinkedIn. And yeah, you can just send me an email if you want to get in touch. And if anyone wants some help, then I'm more than happy to help them. You can go to my website and you see I'll have some coaching programs, and I also have some online programs if you just want something little to try and start working on. Yeah, follow me on Instagram and then you'll see all my content, and then from there we can have a discussion. And feel free to send me an email and I'll give you a free call and we can have a chat.
Beautiful. I will put all of that in the show notes so that it's easy to find. Thank you so much for being here. This was so good.
It was so nice to meet you, Sabrina. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and congratulations on your podcast. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Hey, real quick before you go, if you're loving this podcast and you're thinking, Sabrina, I want more. I want to go deeper. I want a step-by-step process for healing my relationship with food. I've got a free workshop that literally walks you through it. It's a full breakdown of the exact method that I use to help my clients stop binging, heal emotional eating, and finally feel at peace with food in their bodies. It's totally free. So if you're ready to stop feeling obsessed and out of control with food, head to sabrinamagnan.com/training or find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.